Hello everyone and welcome to Introduction to Ethics at Aiken Tech Summer 2020. What I want to do in this video is introduce you to the parameters of the course. I'll basically go down some of the aspects of the syllabus and explain what you need to do for assignments, what the grading components are and how that will look, and how to basically navigate the course and generally an overview of what the time frame is going to be, and show you how to find resources on here. And I'll also end this video by kind of going over the parameters of your first couple of assignments. That way you're kind of set up, and I'll say how assignments will be released and distributed throughout the rest of this summer term. So first of all, everybody, once you come into Blackboard and you go to the home page of the course, and yours might say something a little bit different up here. You might be in section 067 or section 167. Regardless of what it says on your syllabus, whether you're in 067 or 167, the course parameters for this are going to be identical. There's nothing different, no dates are different, no content is different, everything is identical. But so when you get in here, you'll notice the first thing that I've said in here, welcome, and I'm making a video May 11th. That's happening right now. It happens to be 2:24 a.m. Just so happens that's when I get a lot of things done. And I want to show you where stuff is. So first of all, if you go to the course info tab, your syllabus will be right here. You'll notice underneath this, while I'm making this video, it won't be there, but after the video is made, the link for the video will be right underneath this. I'll point how to get there. So I'll say right above the video, that's where the syllabus will be. So if you click on the syllabus, and again, this is 067, but if I look at 167, it's going to be the exact same content, except for saying 167 instead. So here's what we've got. And so what is this course? It's going to explore the major problems and questions of moral philosophy from ancient to modern times by critically evaluating and applying various ethical theories and principles to historical and contemporary moral dilemmas. And so we're going to be reading some important works in here and going through it together. Some works in philosophy can be difficult. We're going to go through it together, applying it to stuff in the past and also stuff presently, especially in the discussion boards. I think right now we have a great opportunity to talk about current world events in light of what we'll be doing in this course and the things we'll be going over. Primarily, we'll be looking at various ethical theories and structures of how we can interpret what is right and wrong, good and evil, good and bad, what is praiseworthy or blameworthy. And so in order to do that for this course, here are the things that you're going to need to be able to do for this class. One, to read out of the required textbook. Now I'll go ahead and say here, there is a required book for this course. Right here it is, Louis Podgeman's Moral Philosophy, 4th edition. That text is adequate, but it's technically required for the course, but actually the majority of what I'm going to be doing in here is not going to be from that textbook. The textbook is almost like a gateway to a lot of good stuff, but fortunately, since what we're doing in here is basically reading old philosophy texts, most of those things are actually in the public domain and available online. So I'm actually going to switch out of here. If you go to, in Blackboard, the Assignments tab, I have a subfolder called Readings right here, and it is broken up into pretty much all the sections that we're going to do throughout the course. It's already there. Everything that I want you to read. So the first section, Ancient Ethics, it's already here. PDFs of everything that I want you to look through. For example, here's Plato's Euthyphro. That's one of the first reading assignments we're going to do. Here it is. And so all the PDFs for the text that we'd want to encounter are already up on Blackboard. So basically the textbook has some supplementary material by the editors like Podgeman himself that are helpful. And in fact, I have some audio content that goes over some of the stuff out of the textbook. But the textbook is a gateway to some of this other stuff. So usually the textbook has very excerpted versions that are really stripped down, sometimes taken out of context, where it could be more fully orbed. And so that's why I've put stuff on Blackboard. And there's a lot of material on Blackboard. We're not going to read every single page or passage, but what I want to say is simply that the majority of what needs to be read, you can get by just looking at what I have online in terms of PDFs. Everything from Ancient Ethics to other approaches here at the end. Or I've got stuff by Jean-Paul Sartre, everything you need to read is online. And these PDFs can be downloaded to your phone or to a tablet or to your computer or wherever else. So they are already there. So that being said, you'll need to at least do that. So when it says read out of the required textbook, I'll just say read from the required readings. That's part one of what you need to be able to do. Two, to listen to occasional downloadable MP3 audios of lectures. So another aspect of this course will be to listen to course lectures. Now these are lectures that I recorded the last time I did an in-person version of this class. And let me go ahead and show you where those are. If you go to back to the Assignments tab, and you go to Course Audio, you'll notice there's two subfolders. There's Textual Analyses and Lecture Audio. These are basically me talking about stuff. The Textual Analyses are me talking about specific things out of the textbook, where I go into depth on a particular text, exegeting its content, explaining it in its context. And the main thing you'll have to do is listen to Lecture Audio. So these are numbered from Lecture 1 all the way down to Lecture 25. Each one of these lectures is on average about 50 minutes, but if you download these as MP3s, you can actually put it in an MP3 player where you can speed up the process. I usually listen to, if I'm watching YouTube videos or listening to lectures, I usually go down to a modifier where you can change the playback speed, and I usually listen to things at 1.5 playback speed, typically, unless it's something where it's really dense and I really need to pay the utmost attention, maybe taking notes. I like to listen to things at a higher speed, but you need to be able to listen to all these. And what you do is basically any of them, you can just click on them, and it'll start playing here in the browser. If I click play, bam, it started playing there. Or what I can do is I can it started playing again. I can download this, and it will come down at the bottom, and then I can take the MP3 file and put it wherever I want to put it. If I want to put it on my phone, listen to it on my phone, I can do that too. So you'll need to be able to do that as well. And then to submit written assignments in Blackboard, that's another thing you'll need to do 3 times throughout the term. There's going to be weekly analyses that you'll do where, and I'll explain this more when we get to assignments, but I'll just say for now where to turn them in. You go to the Assignments tab, go to Weekly Analyses, these written assignments. There's the 3 of them. Like I said, I'll talk more about them in a little bit in terms of what you need to do. How do you turn stuff in? When you finish your Word document in Microsoft Word, you'll come here for the Weekly Analysis 1, browse my computer, it'll bring a bunch of stuff up, and you'll want to attach your file and click Submit, and then you'll have it in. That's how you'll do that. Okay, for all 3 of those at various times throughout the semester. You'll need to be able to take quizzes in Blackboard. Well, how do I do that? Assignments. And I'm going to switch this just so it looks like what it will look like for you right now. If I go to quizzes, there's quiz 1 ready to go. In fact, you can take it right now. Don't, because I think you should do the stuff that you need to do first, and then after the due dates for the quizzes have expired for each one, after a couple of days, the answers to those quizzes will pop up here in a subfolder called Quiz Answer Guide. Now there's actually 5 other quizzes here waiting to pop up. When I put some finishing touches on them, they'll be up and they'll have their various due dates throughout the summer term. And then, like I said, after the due dates, a couple days later, the quizzes will pop up. And the way these will work is, with a few exceptions, the quizzes are all going to be 10 multiple choice, fill in the blank, shorter answer questions. And I want to say short answer like maybe a phrase. I don't mean like a small essay. I mean like more than one word, or something that you'll have to, maybe you could say like a fill in the blank plus, but nothing extensive for this stuff. All the written stuff will be those weekly analyses that I mentioned. And when I get to the grading components, that will make more sense. But basically, if you can get here, once you click begin, so right now it'll say, are you sure you want to start this test? It's got a time limit of 1 hour. So all the quizzes, they'll be, actually the later quizzes will be a little bit different, and I'll explain that when we get there a little bit later in the semester, in that they'll have more questions and more time, but they'll actually still have the same value. That is to say, quizzes 1, 2, and 3 will be 10 question quizzes, each worth 100% out of 100. Quizzes 4, 5, and 6 will actually be 15 question quizzes out of 10, which means they're worth 150 out of 100. If you're going, that math doesn't make any sense, that's because quizzes 4, 5, and 6 basically have extra bonus points. That's all that means. Each one has 5 bonus questions. Quizzes 4, 5, and 6 have 5 bonus questions, each worth as much as the actual questions on the quiz. So there's an opportunity to cultivate a lot of bonus points to help you out by the time you get to the end of the semester. Okay, so don't turn things in late, but if you turn things in on time, you can accrue a ton of bonus points and make a really good grade. in this class. That being said, quizzes 1, 2, and 3 are all 60 minutes for 10 questions, 10 multiple choice fill in the blank questions. Quizzes 4, 5, and 6 are going to be 90 minutes for 15 questions. I think that's reasonable, but just remember, once you start it, you've got that much time to complete it. Something happens while you're taking it, let me know, but everything should be okay while we're doing it. And the stuff on the quizzes is going to correspond exactly to what I'm focused on in class, both on the lectures themselves, and also I've got some slides that I'm going to talk about in a little bit too, for when you're going through the lectures. Everything comes from there. It's not going to be like obscure stuff, like what was Socrates' favorite color or something like that. If I focus on it in the lectures and it's on the boards, you can it's going to be from that material. It's going to be from the stuff that's the most important. Further, while you're taking this stuff online, you're free to use any resources, any class resources that are available to you. I'm going to ask that you don't collude with other students. Okay, what's the answer to number 3? I wouldn't do that, but because it's actually a violation of the college policy. But any resources that you have for the course are entirely available to you. So you're doing quiz 1, and you're like, you know what, this is pretty tough here. The stuff that we had for quiz 1 material, I'll go to the it's going to come from this. So if you have this, like my slides up from this while you're doing the stuff on quiz 1, perfectly fine. That's what it's there for. Okay, so enough about that. Let's get back to the syllabus. So you'll need to be able to take quizzes, and like I said, to retrieve and submit documents from and into Blackboard. Those would be the readings that I already mentioned, and into those would be the weekly analyses that I mentioned. So what that goes over some of the things that you'll need, basics that you'll need to be able to do in order to complete the course online. What are the outcomes of the course? So the learning objectives. 1, recall and identify the major thinkers, schools, core philosophical questions, terms, and concepts found in the history of ideas cross-culturally construed from ancient times to the contemporary world. Now, this is not something I'm expecting anybody to do here at the beginning. This is something I want you to be able to have augmented, not mastered, but augmented by the end. So when I mention somebody like Kongzi or Aristotle, by the end of the semester you'll go, at least have a basic grasp of who that is, what they're all about, and when and where they lived. Okay, or if I say something like existentialism, you have a basic idea of what it is and what time period it fits into. 2, interpret and explain core philosophical questions and concepts in terms that illustrate a comprehensive understanding thereof. Comprehensive in an undergraduate context. So eventually in the semester we're going to talk about the notion of rights. What is a right? Are there different kinds of rights? The answer to that question is yes, but so what is a right as opposed to a duty, as opposed to a virtue? Those things all kind of get mishmashed today. So we'll get into that. Be able to interpret and explain and say how things are different, but with a rudimentary knowledge. I'm not expecting anybody to have a PhD in ethics by the end of the semester, but at least be able to talk about these things, to interpret in your own words. The discussion board will be a component where that will be really exercised, as well as the weekly analyses. 3, apply core philosophical questions and concepts to contemporary issues and personal experience. The discussion board will primarily be this, although I think the weekly analyses will be an opportunity for that as well. So sometimes when people are talking about ethics, and this is true with a lot of philosophy, people often think of it as something that it's abstract, it doesn't really have anything to do with anything practical. That's nonsense. It really does. Just when you look at it in isolation, it doesn't make any sense. There's so much stuff going on right now where these ethical issues have come into play. Should we do this? Should we do this as a society? Should we do this as a country? Should we do this as a community? Should we do this as a family? So right now, some of those questions: should we be under quarantine right now? Should we be under lockdown? Should we open up businesses? Should we wear masks? Should people be forced to do this? Should there be punitive damages? Should people get checks from the government? All those kinds of questions are things, those are ethical questions. And politics is just kind of ethics within a particular kind of politically organized community. That's all it is. So ethics and politics go together, as do ethics, politics, and personal identifiers. Okay, what I think is right and wrong as well. Okay. 4, compare and contrast related core philosophical questions and concepts and the correlative thinkers and schools with which they are commonly associated. Say, well, utilitarians say this, but deontologists say this. You probably don't have any idea what either one of those terms means right now, and that's perfectly fine. But by the end of the semester, I want you to be able to explain something like, these people say this, and here's how it's different. Here's the difference between virtue ethics and of Aristotle versus virtue ethics of Kongzi. That's Confucius. Okay, and 5, justify a sound philosophical position on a topic or topics of contemporary human interest in the areas of knowledge, ethics, or human condition that integrates and logically demonstrates a synthesis in thought. Let me break that down. Here's what that means. What I expect you to be able to do, and again, not from the get-go, but in your weekly analyses and in your discussion board posts, is to be able to we'll just say this. When I say justify a sound position, just back up what you're saying. With academic writing, okay, even if it's on a discussion board, think of yourself as an attorney, where you're presenting a case. And if you're presenting a case as an attorney, whether you be a prosecutor or a defense attorney, you want to back up your claim with evidence. Now, your claim is your thesis. Now, that doesn't mean it needs to be a thesis paper, but the thesis is the thing you're saying, this is the case. So if you're a defense attorney, your thesis is probably going to be, my client is not guilty. So if you have that's your thesis, that's the thing you're working with, my client's not guilty. If you're a defense attorney and you say, my client is not guilty, Your Honor, the defense rests. Your client is probably going to prison now. Okay, why? Well, because you didn't back it up with any evidence. So when I say justify a sound philosophical position, the key word here is justify. Back up what you're saying. If you want to say, like, if you're a defense attorney, you want to say your client is not guilty, provide an alibi. They weren't in the state or the country when this crime occurred. They didn't do this. Okay? Even if they did do it, it wasn't a matter of intent. We talk about that in our legal system. That's why we have first-degree murder versus second-degree murder versus manslaughter. Those are considered different things because the intent is different levels. We'll talk about that throughout the course of the semester as well, too. But just back up what you're saying. Don't just sometimes something can seem really obvious to you that something is the case. Like, oh, things are this way. This is right. This is wrong. Maybe it is. And maybe it seems obvious to you. Okay, maybe it seems obvious to you that your client is not guilty. Like, isn't it obvious they didn't do it because they're such a nice person? It might seem obvious to you, but in the court of logic here and ethics, nothing should be taken as an obvious given. We want to investigate. We want to demonstrate. This is why this should be the case. This is why you should accept this belief, based on evidence, reason, and logic. Okay, and so those are the learning outcomes of this course. The next section of the syllabus is basically how to write me an email, because sometimes people will say, "Hey, professor," and then they'll misspeak my last name, which, by the way, is Burris. Burr like Burr. We're cold, and us like we people. I get a lot of Professor Burrs, Brown, Burr. That's not my name. Here's how to send me an email. All right, dear me. Let me know what's going on. Say who you are. Also say what section of the class you're in. Like, hey, I'm in ethics 067. I'm in ethics 167. Just let me know who you are so I can get back to you and go ahead and look you up and see what's going on if you got a question. Furthermore, at the top of this syllabus, I believe, is my email. It's burrist@atc.edu. Feel free to email me there. Sometimes my notifications don't pop up here as often as I'd like, but email me here. As soon as you have any kind of question, email me here immediately. I'll also be available for Zoom meetings as they are necessary. So if you want to get together with a conference, we can do a Zoom meeting. Skype is fine. I might even be able to do FaceTime possibly if that works better for you. If we need to meet throughout the semester, I want you to know. Email me, let me know, hey, I'd like to meet up and discuss this, and we'll get together and discuss it. There are more subdivisions of those aspects that I already articulated, just more detailed versions. I'm not going to go into those here. The next thing I want to go into, and there are other policies in here, there's an attendance policy for online. Basically, I don't want to pull it up because it'll reveal all your names and things. I can look and see when everybody logs in and looks at things. And so I'll just say, keep up to date with what's going on. This course is meant to be constructed in a way that you can do it in kind of a self-paced fashion. You can kind of do it. There are due dates throughout the semester, but it's constructed in such a way that you should be able to kind of do it at within reason, with the exception of the milestones or benchmarks throughout the semester. You can kind of do it at your own pace. Don't come to me. Please do not come to me at the end of the semester and say, "Oh, hey, what can I do to improve my grade?" You've never turned anything in. Okay, just keep doing the work and keep logging in. That's all I'll say here. Academic dishonesty. I need to go over this especially because this is an online class. Here's what you shouldn't do. This can be constituted as cheating, plagiarism, collusion. Don't copy from somebody else's stuff. So if you have, someone took this class in the past, I've got an old test, you can have it. Well, one, it's not going to be the same because this changes every semester. And two, if I have evidence of you giving the same answers and I can demonstrate that, they'll be indicative of academic dishonesty. Please don't do it. Don't use materials during a test that are not authorized. I've already told you when you're taking quizzes and the final exam when we get there, you're free to use anything that I have distributed for the course. All that stuff's fine. Okay? Collaborating with any person during a test without permission. So while you're taking, please don't take, if you know someone else is in the class, please don't take the quizzes together and go, what's the answer number 6? Please don't do that. Please do the work on your own. Knowingly obtaining, using, buying, selling, transporting, or soliciting in whole or in part the contents of an unadministered test. So if there's evidence that you got an old test or somehow, broke into Blackboard and were able to take out the tests or quizzes in the system, if there were evidence of that, that would be grounds for failure of the course and expulsion from the college. Bribing another person to obtain tests or information about tests. Okay, even if you're like, hey, I'll give you $5 if you tell me what quiz 5 was like in spring 2018. Again, different. It would be a different test and not the same thing. But even if you did do that, that itself would be considered academically dishonest. And substituting for another student or permitting any other person to substitute oneself. So, if let's say you're like, I don't think I can do quiz 2. I wonder if my brother who took this class 2 years ago, if they could take quiz 2 for me. If there is evidence of that, that would be indicative of academic dishonesty as well. These are things I just need to say. Usually haven't been problems. In fact, at Aiken Tech, I've never really had a problem with this being the case, with I think maybe one exception. Just you've got a lot of freedom to do the work and to do it well. All I ask is that you do that, and please don't violate these principles here. These are good ethical principles in themselves. So in addition to being a class about ethics, it's a class wherein we need to practice ethics too. And for all, I'm going to go ahead and say implied consent. I am assuming I'm going to put this on weekly analyses, this little thing here too, your academic integrity pledge. But I'm going ahead and saying it now, that I'm declaring that all assignments for this course, this academic integrity pledge is implied. So if you submit any assignment for this course, I'm going to assume you're doing it in accordance with this little pledge here. Just point that out. Okay, here's some of the contact stuff. Again, it's very bare bones because we're all online right now. That's me. That's my email. You need to meet with me. We'll meet online. We'll figure it out. And then the way the final exam works, usually Aiken Tech, even when it's an online class, we do final exams in person. The first time I'm aware of where that has not been the case was this spring semester that just ended. So originally we were going to meet in person in the first, I think either the last week of April or the first week of May. I think the last week of April. If that just didn't happen, we did the final exams online as well. This is new and different. That had never been done, as far as I'm aware, before. As far as I'm aware now, that's going to be the same thing for this summer term, where even though the class is online, the final exam, until I'm told otherwise, the final exam is going to be online. Now, there's a possibility when it comes to August, the college might declare that, oh, no, we're open, we're going to do our exam in person. If that's the case, I would just want to warn you now, that could potentially be the case where we have to do that because of college policies. That is Aiken Technical College policies. Right now, I don't know. I'm going to assume that we're doing this completely online. Right now, that's going to be my presumption. If it changes, I will let you know immediately. Okay, that brings us now to the grades for the course. So pretty much everything is 8%. There's one exception to this. So here's what the 8% are. Quizzes, of which there are 6. Each one is worth 8% of the final grade. There'll always be multiple choice, fill in the blank, and I said short answer questions. And they always have a specific due date. Okay? Throughout, and basically it's going to be the 6 quizzes spread roughly 2.5 weeks throughout the semester. Roughly speaking. The first one's a little bit earlier than that because the first one is so short, it's just on a little bit of material. But generally speaking, it'll be about every 2.5 weeks you'll have a quiz. That's, like I said, 10 multiple choice questions. The quizzes on the back end actually have more, but they have more bonus points. So 6 quizzes, each worth 8%. Okay? And they need to be done on time. Next element, 3 2-page weekly analyses. And I'll probably do a separate video on these as well, exactly what this needs to look like with some examples. That is 3 times throughout the semester or this summer term. You're going to put in a certain kind of format of which there are examples of already, where there's an example of here's what the format needs to look like. And like I said, I'll make a specific video about that because that will probably itself be about as long as this video. In 12-point Times Roman, 1-inch margins, 2 whole pages. That means whether you put a cover page in or not, 2 pages of writing, 12-point Times Roman, double spaced. That doesn't mean you made it to page 2. That doesn't mean 1.5 pages. At least 2 top to bottom pages. Okay, so top, where that means you didn't put like name and date and my name, your name, favorite color, likes, dislikes, turn-ons, turn-offs, like not that thing. Just you start at the top and go to the bottom of the page and go to the next page. That kind of 2 pages. 3 times you'll do these little 2-page papers where you'll simply say something. They're called weekly analyses because it's basically, talk about a week's worth of content in your own words. It need not be that necessarily. Just talk about something that we discussed in class in your own words for 2 pages. This is not a research paper. If you use outside sources, you need to cite them, and I'll talk about how to do that exactly. But just 2 pages in your own words, talk about something we talked about in class. But remember, it goes back to that 5th learning objective of if you're going to say something declarative or definitive, where you say like, I think Aristotle's stupid, maybe he is, back up what you're saying. So if you I want you to talk about things in your own words, and you can give me your reactions to it, but make sure if you're giving me your reactions to it, you're simply backing it up. Okay? Like I said, we'll talk more about the paper in a separate video a little bit later. Similarly, and you'll do 3 of those, also each worth 8%. And then the discussion board, I'll be putting little topics up, little threads throughout the semester. I think there's already one there now for the first quiz stuff is already present. So what I want, pretty small, pretty simple, but again, if you're going to say something, back it up. I'll also say here, if you're interacting with other people on the discussion board, please don't use vituperative language. That is to say, don't insult other people. Okay, that's something I don't want to see and I will not tolerate. But what I do want to see, if you're talking about ideas and we end up having a dialectic or a debate about things of sorts, simply defend your position. Think of yourself as an attorney. I'm defending my position. It's not to really destroy the positions of others, but to defend your own to the best of your ability. Simply back up what you're saying. Don't take what you're saying as obvious or take it for granted. Just back it up. Well, again, like an attorney presenting evidence. 3 posts, okay, of about 4 to 5 sentences. All right, so a little tiny paragraph. Okay, less like a tweet, more like a Tumblr post. Okay, in terms of length here, where you said something, 4 to 5 complete sentences 3 times through some different discussion boards throughout the term. Okay, 8% of your grade. Do that, you're golden. Okay, and then that all adds up. That's been, if you add it up, discussion board being 8%, the weekly analysis being 8%, the quizzes being 8%, that all adds up to 80% of your grade. So what's left? The final exam, which is 20%. Right now, again, it says it will be proctored in person, but I have a addendum down here where, technically college policies, this stuff happens in person. Right now, I'm under the assumption we will be doing this online. But the final exam, regardless of where it happens, it will still be done on a computer. So even if we meet in person, it will be done on the computer in an online format. It will be 20 questions, okay? So it won't be outrageous. And all it will be is it will basically be the greatest hits of the quizzes that you've already had. Now, I already mentioned, if you look at the quizzes, which are right here, okay, right now there's just quiz 1 here. Eventually the quizzes up to 6 will be here. There's a folder underneath it that says quiz answer guides. Right now there's nothing in here for you all. But what will happen is after quizzes are done, after they're due, about 48 hours later, answer key will pop up in here. So you can review that, because the final exam, again, will be, and its location is actually already here. If I go to assignments, here's where it's going to be. There's nothing there right now. But when we do it, when you open it up, it will be nothing but questions that have already been on quizzes that you've already had. So it will be cumulative, but it will be nothing new. Okay, again, it will only be questions that you've had before. So once the answer guides go up, you'll have all the answers for the final exam if you're prepared. Now, again, the final exam itself will have a time limit too, probably 90 minutes. And so if you're less familiar with stuff, that's going to and you're having to look everything up, you're probably going to run out of time and it's not going to go well for you. But if you've been doing the quizzes and reviewing them as you go through it, you'll be familiar with the material. Okay, so that's how this is going to work. With that being said, let me go ahead and I'll make a post about this too. But I want to go ahead and talk about the first assignment. All right, so I'll verbally say it here, and there'll be a written version that comes up as well. So the first assignment is to do the following. So we go to course audio, we go to lecture audio. What I want you to do is I want you to listen to these first two lectures here. Lecture 1, an introduction to logic, arguments, and fallacies. And lecture 2, an introduction to logic, arguments, and fallacies, part 2. You can stop right here when I start talking about Plato's Euthyphro. I want to say that's about maybe 45 minutes deep in here. But as soon as you hear me start talking about Plato's Euthyphro and transitioning to this, you can stop. Now, while you're doing that, also under the Assignments tab, there are sways on logic. Now, throughout most of the semester, we're going to look at sways on ethics. Okay, where here's a subfolder of here's all the slides I used during the lectures. But for our purposes here, we're going to look at the sways on logic, because the first quiz is basically going to be on logic. So here we go. Laws of logic. These are the 3 slides that correspond to those lectures. You'll notice the lectures: logic, arguments, and fallacies. Oh, look, here's something on logic, arguments, and fallacies. So these are the slides as when I'm speaking, when I'm saying, like, if you look up at the screen, it says this. Here's the stuff that you'll be looking at. It's all right here. These are Microsoft sways. What I like about these is these are all basically links where if you have them, they're optimized for whatever device you're on. So if you're looking at this on your phone, on the computer, on a tablet, it automatically optimizes to whatever device you're on. They're kind of like PowerPoints, but a little less cumbersome. So you'll look at these sways on logic, which again, if you go to assignments, sways on logic, everything in there. There's also a little appendix here that's basically, here's some logical rules that might be helpful. And you'll listen to those lectures. Again, those first 2 lectures that I mentioned. And then, when that's complete, there's no reading other than the sways on logic for this first assignment. Then, you'll be doing quiz 1 here. Now, quiz 1 is due the end of day. Let me go ahead and pop this up here on my calendar. It's due the end of day a week from today. So by the end of the day, May 18th, 2020, is when this 10-question quiz is due. Now you'll notice it says May 19th, 2020 at midnight. Blackboard renders midnight as the beginning of the day. So what this means is this is really due May 18th, 11:59 p.m. It says May 19th, 2020. So the first quiz, it's 10 questions. And I'll probably put like a little sample up on Blackboard here too, of like what the questions will look like, just so you kind of know what to expect. So I'll give you like maybe a couple of freebies, just so you can see what the quiz is going to be like. I should probably have that up later today, the 11th of May. But you'll notice it has a 1-hour time limit, 60 minutes, 10 multiple choice questions that comes from those two lectures that I mentioned, and also the sways on logic. Okay, that's where it comes from. So that's the first assignment. The other thing I want to bring your attention to that's coming up. So the first thing due is due the 19th of May. The next thing due, if you look at weekly analyses, the first weekly analysis, this is more of a ways off, is due May 26th at midnight. Now if you look in Blackboard, if we actually click on it, it'll say, probably down here somewhere. Actually, it doesn't. No, it does. It'll say the 27th at midnight. Well, it's due when I say, I'll rectify this by saying May 26th, end of day at midnight is when this is due. If it's any later, then if it's the 27th, it's late. So really, it's due the end of day, May 26th. One of those assignments where you say what we talked about in class, 2 pages in your own words. That's to the 26th. So these are until you get to the 26th, these are the only 2 assignments that are due where you have something that you have to turn in. So again, the quiz 1, which is due the 19th, and the first weekly analysis, which is due May 26th. So like I said, tomorrow or later today, the 11th, I'll have a couple of sample questions from quiz 1, so you'll kind of know what to expect, first of all. Second of all, I'll also be making a video of how to do the weekly analysis as well, and that should be up in the next 48 hours. All right, so it should be up. I can't imagine having it up any later than May 12th, barring some kind of impediment. So in the meantime, I think that concludes. Well, I'll just say this. There's the grade scale there. I don't think there's anything particularly remarkable about this. Then here's just the schedule of topics. So basically, there's not dates on this, but here's kind of what we're doing. So even if you look at the readings here, all these readings, Plato, Aristotle, that's going to be quiz 2 stuff. This is quiz 3 stuff. This is quiz 4 stuff. This is quiz 5 stuff. This is quiz 6 stuff. So that gives you an idea. Generally speaking, we'll be here. We'll have finished quiz 1, 2, 3 stuff by the time we get to mid-June. So that's basically the goal. So there's not concrete dates on the other quizzes just yet. Like I said, it's roughly going to be this. You got the weekly analysis, the first one here, that's due on the 26th. You'll have a second one that's due in June. You'll have a third one that's due in July, I believe. And then you'll have quizzes that are basically roughly 2.5 weeks apart. Okay, so that's how that's going to work. And then the final exam will be at the end, I believe sometime in early August. Okay, so that's kind of a generalized time frame of when assignments are going to happen. And that's going to conclude, I think, what I have for you in this introductory video. If you have questions for me, please email me at burst@atc.edu. Okay, I look forward to working with you all, everybody. Have a good rest of the beginning to your summer 2020 here at Aiken Tech at home.